This presentation is about the 8 species that fall under the name pangolin in the order Pholiodota. Pangolin species are divided across their continental origins. There are 4 species of African pangolins and 4 species of Asian pangolins. However, before going into the specifics about the distinguishing features of each pangolin species, let's talk about some of the key characteristic traits that all pangolin species share. Several of the pangolin's key characteristics are associated with evolutionary adaptations to their myrmecophagous diets as they feed primarily on ants and termites, such as their conical head shape, lack of dentition, weakly developed masticatory muscles, those generally used for crushing and chewing, an elongated tongue that extends into the pangolin's abdominal cavity and is used for probing holes and collecting its insect prey. Pangolins also possess strong flexor muscles on their forelegs and sharp claws that aid their ability to dig and penetrate ant and termite mounds. Additionally, in arboreal pangolin species, these long claws are curved to aid in climbing. Other characteristics include reduced pinnae and nostrils to prevent dirt from entering orifices while digging, thick skin, to protect from debris as well as the ants and termites themselves. The pangolin's scaled armor is one of its most distinguishable features. These artichoke-shaped scales are actually extrusions of the epidermis and are composed of keratin. These scales, along with the pangolin's thick skin, can account for up to 1/3 of its body weight. These scales not only provide protection from predator, but also from fossorial activities such as digging and burrowing. Pangolin scales are very sensitive to the touch and change orientation depending on the dermal muscles. For example, when a pangolin is rolled up into a ball to assume a defensive position from a predator, the large scales along the tail protrude backwards, creating sharp, threatening edges that could cause injury to the predator. Another key characteristic of all pangolin species is their long, muscular tails. Larger pangolin species are known for using their tails like a club to strike out at predators. Additionally, these tails aid in the balance when the pangolin walks bipedally or when climbing. For arboreal species, the tail is highly prehensile and can be used as an anchor limb for additional support. Another characteristic is pungent anal glands that often produce a musk-scented liquid that ranges in color from white to yellow. It's used as territorial marking as well as defense mechanism when disturbed. While all pangolin species share these characteristics, the different species are most distinguishable by their size, weight, scale disposition, color, and tail length. Now let's meet the African pangolin species. The black-bellied pangolin on the top right. As of 2019, the species is classified as vulnerable by the IUCN Red List. The black-bellied pangolin is a small arboreal species that weighs between 2.5 to 8 pounds and is no more than 47 inches in length, so its total body length, including its tail, is less than 4 inches. As its name suggests, the species is easily identified by its black skin and hair with very thick, robust scales that are dark brown in coloration at the base, switching to a yellow gold. The species does not have any hairs that project from the scales. Giant ground pangolin is the top left. It's currently listed as endangered by the IUCN Red List. It's the largest extant species of pangolin, weighing up to 88 pounds and measuring up to almost 6 feet in length. Much like its name suggests, the species is terrestrial fossorial. It is distinguishable by its size, lack of hair projecting between the scales, distinctly elongated snout, pale pinkish gray head with limited scales except at the top of the forehead. The Timnix pangolin is currently listed as vulnerable. The pangolin is terrestrial/fossorial, which is why it is sometimes known as the Timnix ground pangolin. It's a medium-sized pangolin with males ranging in size from 23 to 35 pounds and 37 to 51 inches in length. Females are smaller, which this tends to be the case with all pangolin species. The Timnix females range from 10 to 22 pounds and 30 to 41 inches in length. The species has very large scales, with no hair projections. Additionally, the species has a pear-shaped skull with scales covering its forehead down to the snout, as can be seen in the bottom left picture. The species coloration varies geographically, ranging in color from slate gray to dark brown, yellow-brown, and the facial skin is dark gray. The white-bellied pangolin on the bottom right is currently listed as endangered. It's known to be the lightest colored pangolin species with small scales that are brownish gray and hair that's grayish white and can grow very dense and long on its belly. It is small and semi-arboreal, ranging in weight from 1 to 2 kilograms, so 2.5 to 6 pounds. On average, its total body length, including tail, is 39 inches, so just a little over 3 feet. Now we're going to meet the Asian pangolin species. We're going to start with the Chinese pangolin at the top right, which is currently listed as critically endangered by the IUCN Red List. This pangolin species has a more streamlined body shape with a small pointed head and noticeably shorter tail compared to other pangolin species. It has a total body length roughly 31 to 35 inches and weighs between 6.5 to 11 pounds. This species is easily distinguished by its more prominent ear pinnae, helmeted appearance, and dark scale coloration. Additionally, this pangolin has white to pale brown hairs that protrude at the base of the scales. This is a characteristic indicative of most all the Asian species having hair that protrudes from the scales. The Indian pangolin that you can see in the middle on the right is currently classified as endangered. It principally phosphorial and weighs between 17.5 and 35 pounds and reaches a total body length of almost 5 feet. The species has a notable thick-set tail and massive scales, the largest of the Asian pangolins. One scale can measure up to almost 3 inches in length and over 3 inches in width. These scales are generally khaki colored. Its skin and hair have a pinkish hue. Next is the Philippine, sometimes called the Palawan pangolin. On the left there is currently listed as critically endangered. The Philippine pangolin is semi-arboreal and weighs roughly between 9 to 15 pounds with a total body length of 39 to 51 inches, so only 3 to 4 feet. The length of their tail is a very distinguishable feature, as the tail's length is approximately 90% of the head to body length. Its scale range in color from creamy orange to yellowish white to brown with thick hairs protruding from the base. The species' head is largely naked except for small scales along the forehead. Lastly, we have the Sunda pangolin is on the bottom right. It is also listed as critically endangered. Sunda pangolins are semi-arboreal, weighing roughly between 9 and 15 pounds, with a total body length of approximately 55 inches. Their foreheads have very small scales, much like the Philippine pangolin, except that theirs extends toward the snout more. Scales also have an olive hue to them, and each scale has 3 to 4 thick hairs protruding from its base. These hairs can range in color from whitish gray or brown to black. Their skin has noted to be gray with sometimes bluish hue to it. Here we're going to look at the taxonomy of the pangolin. They are in the kingdom Animalia, the phylum Chordata. Class, they are mammals, so Mammalia. Order is Phyliodata, which is the order of the pangolin, and then the family is Manidea. As you can see here, the family Manidea is divided into 3 subfamilies. The subfamily Maninaea consists of the Asian pangolins, with the genus being Manus. The subfamily Samatsune is made up of the large African pangolins, with the genus name of Sumetsea. Lastly, the subfamily Phytagenea is composed of the small African pangolins with the genus name of Phytagenus. Both the taxonomy, phylogeny, and evolutionary history of the pangolin is poorly known, as they remain one of the least studied mammalian species despite their evolutionary uniqueness and degree of imperilment. The origin and early evolution of Philiodata has been difficult to study due to the species' sparse fossil record. Additionally, molecular phylogenies have been hampered by incomplete taxonomic sampling and well locus representation, coupled with the potential evidence for cryptic species diversity within some of the more widely distributed pangolin species. Despite these limitations, it's believed that pangolins have a Lauralasia origin. Originally, the pangolin was placed in the order Bruta, along with elephants, manatees, sloths, and anteaters in 1758. They were reassigned to the order Mutacea in 1780, along with anteaters, sloths, and armadillos. Then in 1904, penguins were named to the order Philiodata and the supraordinal group Edentata, along with xenarthrans and aardvarks. While biologists and systematists once thought that penguins were closely related to xenarthrans, such as anteaters, due to both orders sharing numerous adaptations for their shared specialized diets. However, close inspection through molecular phylogenies revealed that penguins are actually a sister group to the order Carnivora. This was discovered in 1985. As you can see, the phylogeny below represents the current status of order Philiodonta. The shared adaptations and diets with South Americans and xenarthran species is simply an example of convergent evolution. The split of Philiodonta into 3 distinct genera has been supported with mitochondrial and nuclear phylogeny, which is important as molecular tracing is one way that conservationists are tracking and tracing the species that are currently being trafficked, providing critical information about where these animals are actually coming from and where they are going. The map below shows the current distribution for all 8 pangolin species. We're first going to look at the African species on the left, starting with the white-bellied pangolin that is found mainly in West and Central Africa, and the countries of Guinea, Sierra Leone, Nigeria, Cameroon, Gabon, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Rwanda, and Uganda. Their range does extend as far east as western Kenya, Tanzania, and Zambia, as well as far south as northern Angola. The giant ground pangolin is also found in West and Central Africa. However, it has a discontinuous distribution. Specifically, it's found in the countries of Senegal, Guinea, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Ghana, Benin, Burkina Faso, Niger, Nigeria, Cameroon, Congo Basin into central Uganda, western Kenya, Tanzania, as well as South Sudan. The black-bellied pangolin is also distributed through West and Central Africa, and it also has a distribution gap between the 2 areas. They are found in the following countries of Sierra Leone, Guinea, Liberia, Ghana, Nigeria, Cameroon, Congo Basin, Central African Republic, Gabon, and Uganda. Lastly, in Africa is the Timnix pangolins, which is the most widespread of the African pangolin species. It's distributed through much of East and Southern Africa, including the countries of Angola, Botswana, Central African Republic, Chad, Ethiopia, Kenya, Malawi, Mozambique, Zambia, South Africa, South Sudan, Tanzania, Uganda, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. As you can see from the map, there's a lot of distribution overlap for the African pangolin species, except for the Timnix pangolin. Now let's go look over at Asia. There's a very limited distribution overlap with the Asian pangolin species, as you can see on the right. The Indian pangolin is distributed across South Asia in the countries of Pakistan, India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and western Bangladesh. Unlike the name suggests, the Chinese pangolin does not only inhabit southern China, but also Nepal, Bhutan, India, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Laos, Vietnam, Thailand, and Taiwan. The Philippine pangolin is aptly named as it is endemic to the Philippines. On the mainland of the Philippines, it is only found in the province of Palawan. Off the main island, it can be found on the Calamayan Islands. Lastly, in Asia, is the Sunda pangolins. They are the most distributed Asian pangolin species occurring across Southeast Asia and including the following countries of Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia. Due to the pangolin's nature, they are not currently accurate historical ranges versus current ranges due to their elusiveness. There's just a lack of data on that information. Now we're going to take a closer look at the African species habitats. The black-bellied pangolins live primarily in riparian or swamp forests, especially those dominated by palms. They have been observed in primary forest and forests with savanna mosaics. Primary forests are those that are untouched and haven't been disturbed. The giant ground pangolin lives in a broad range of habitats, including primary and secondary rainforests, swamp forests like those pictured on the top right, forest savanna mosaics, and savanna woodlands like those pictured on the bottom. Research shows that this species may be dependent upon access to permanent water sources. Unlike the other African pangolins, the Timmenix pangolins do not inhabit true forests and are not as water dependent. Therefore, they mainly inhabit savannas and low-lying woodlands with dense shrubs. They have also been seen in floodplain grasslands and along rocky slopes. Then we have the white-bellied pangolin that lives predominantly in moist tropical lowland forests and secondary growth, but they've also been observed in dense woodlands along waterways and abandoned palm oil plantations. They're generally considered to have more flexibility in their habitat use compared to the other African species. Now we're going to look at the Asian species habitats in a little more detail. The Chinese pangolins are found in a broad range of habitats, including primary and secondary tropical forests, like the one shown in the top left, limestone forests, bamboo forests, broadleaf and coniferous forests, grassland, and agricultural fields. Much like the Chinese pangolin, Indian pangolins are also found in a broad range of habitats, including tropical forests, open grasslands like that shown in the bottom picture, arid areas, although not true desert, and degraded habitats. So the species is very flexible in habitat use as long as prey is abundant. Then we have the Philippine pangolins that mainly inhabit primary and secondary lowland forests. But much like other pangolin species, they will use a diverse range of habitats, including lowland grassland, agricultural fields, beach and mangrove forests like that shown in the top right, and ravine forest. The Sunda pangolins inhabit primary and secondary forests, but they can also be found in cultivated areas such as palm oil and rubber plantations. The primary habitat determinant for any pangolin species generally tends to be the abundance of ant or termite food sources. Pangolins have a very specialized diet called myrmecophagous diet, meaning their diets primarily to exclusively consist of ants and or termites. Pangolins consume all life stages of their prey, including eggs, larvae, pupa, and adults. However, they are very selective in what species of ants and termites they will eat, and this also varies seasonally. For example, the Philippine pangolin is only known to consume 2 ant species and 1 termite species, while the Sunda pangolin readily consumes up to 11 different ant species. Some pangolin species, such as the giant ground pangolin, have been known to consume beetles when ant and termite populations are low. This specialized diet makes keeping pangolins in professional human care extremely difficult. As mentioned earlier, most of the pangolin's physiological uniqueness is due to this specialized diet. One major adaptation is its elongated tongue to reach into ant and termite mounds, as well as other crevices, including a pine cone, as pictured above, where an insect might hide. Additionally, the pangolin's salivary glands produce and secrete a very thick, sticky mucus that coats the tongue, helping to trap the prey and return it to the pangolin's mouth for consumption. As insects have a tough, hard exoskeleton, pangolins have acquired the behavioral adaptation of swallowing small stones as well as soil to aid the grinding process in their stomachs for better digestion of the chitin and exoskeleton found on these insects. The myrmecophagous diets often evolve as they fill an available niche space in carnivoria, As insect exoskeletons are hard to digest but are rich in protein and nutrients, if evolutionary adaptations can be made to assess them. Additionally, this diet of specialization allows for the abandonment of mastication, which allows these mammals to ingest food at a quicker pace, leaving them less vulnerable to predatory attacks while foraging, and aiding in the ability to consume a higher volume of food. Now we're going to do some fun facts. The first one is, it's all in a name. Penguins get their name from the Malay word Pangolin, that means one that rolls up. The penguins also have some fun nicknames they go by, including scaly anteater, walking pine cones, and preambulatory artichokes. A second fun fact about penguins is just how long that tongue is. Penguin tongues are so long. How does their body hold such an impressive tongue? Well, the tongue attaches to the end of the penguin's sternum, which extends far into the abdomen. When relaxed, the tongue actually coils in along the abdominal wall and can be as far back as beside the kidneys. Some penguins can even extend their tongues up to 16 inches out of their mouth and can reach lengths that are greater than the bodies themselves. A fun third fact about penguins is that even though they are small mammals, they have a big ecological impact. Penguins provide great pest control. Some researchers estimate that one penguin can consume roughly 70 million ants or termites annually. This ecological service is important because if these insect populations are left unchecked, they can cause structural damages to buildings as well as agricultural crops. The burrowing species of pangolins, which is pretty much all except for the black-bellied pangolin, because even the white-bellied pangolin is arboreal. It often will create burrows at night, are considered ecosystem engineers as they excavate deep burrows for sleeping and nesting for themselves. They also provide breeding habitat due to their stable temperatures in the burrows and shelter for other species such as the Travancore tortoise, pouch rats, African bushtail porcupines, mongoose, and various species of martins. Additionally, the process of digging the burrow helps with soil processes such as the aeration, mineralization, and turnover of organic matter. It has been reported that a Chinese pangolin can excavate up to 15 feeding burrows in a single night. By far, the number one contributing factor to pangolin imperilment is illegal trade and trafficking. Pangolins have been given the sad title of the most trafficked animal in the world. Internationally, trafficking began to rise after the Asian pangolin species became rare due to overexploitation for local uses. Asian pangolins were essentially being eaten to extinction, so Asian markets brought their demands to Africa starting around the year 2008. China and Vietnam remain the highest importers of the illegal trade, as all 8 species are listed under Appendix 1 of CITES, especially as pangolin products are considered to reinforce one's social status. Pangolins are wanted for meat and Chinese as well as Vietnamese traditional medicines. They use the scale, blood, and other body parts for this. They are also wanted as stuffed pangolins are sold as souvenirs. Skins are used to create leather products for the fashion industry, as seen in the tunic on the top left that is constructed out of etched pangolin scales. While pangolin trafficking rates have hit an all-time high, the problem is not new. Pangolin scales were historically trafficked as early as 1925. The full extent of pangolin trafficking is unknown and most likely underestimated, as current estimates are only based on seizures, which is likely only a portion of the illegal trade. To help gain a glimpse of the understanding of this current threat and its magnitude, here are some statistics. It is estimated that 895,000 pangolins, including all 8 species, have been trafficked internationally from the year 2000 to 2019, involving more than 50 countries. In 2019, during one single event, Singapore custom agents seized approximately 13 tons of pangolin scales worth $52 million. This amount of scales translates to roughly 17,000 pangolins killed. You can see the amount in the seizure below in the picture. Similar seizures have also occurred in Nigeria, China, and Vietnam. Between 2019 and 2020, roughly 100,000 tons of pangolin products and over 2,000 live pangolins were seized or recovered from traffickers. Despite being illegal, stopping international trade and trafficking of the species has been difficult due to the high financial incentives for those involved. For example, in 2016, in China, you could sell the scales would retail for approximately $800 per kilogram. Before international trafficking of penguins began, in Africa and Asia, they were heavily hunted and killed for local use, particularly as bushmeat, as they would provide rural villages with an inexpensive protein source for their diets. Poaching, illegal hunting was extensive and continues to be. Hunting dogs are often employed by villagers to help locate these elusive animals, as you can see in the picture on the top right, where multiple dogs have treed a pangolin in Africa found on a palm oil plantation. Pangolins are also hunted locally by smoking them out of their burrows. Pangolin scales and body parts have historically and continue to be used to make tools and in traditional medicines, folklore, and tribal beliefs at a local level. For example, in Africa, pangolin scales are often used locally to make knife blades, and the skins are used to make drums. Additionally, in the African country of Sierra Leone, 22 different pangolin body parts are used to treat various medical conditions, ranging from menstrual pain, heart disease, food poisoning, to asthma, stroke, gonorrhea, and mental illness. Throughout Asia, drinking pangolin blood is believed to bring good health, and in Southeast Asia, the tongue is believed to protect from harmful magic if worn, like a necklace. In Nepal, the pangolin uterus is believed to prevent miscarriage, and the scales are placed by children's bed to prevent disease and evil spirits. Additionally, in the Philippines, there is belief that pangolin flesh can cure various skin diseases, and these are just a few of the many beliefs that occur across both continents. While all 8 species have experienced declines due to the pressure of poaching for bushmeat, in Africa the white-bellied pangolin is the most common of the African species found in bushmeat markets, with approximately 400,000 pangolins poached annually in Central Africa alone. The Philippine pangolin initially experienced declines due to hunting and poaching for local sustenance as well. In 2012, 448 pangolins were poached in 3 municipalities in the Palawan area alone, and between 2009 to 2014, hunting and poaching switched from being used local to international trade due to financial incentives. This is becoming more and more of a common occurrence across the different pangolin species ranges. Chong and Associates noted in 2020 that it is challenging to quantify the extent of pangolin for local use by poaching and hunting, but that is pervasive. The third main means of imperilment for pangolin species is habitat loss. Rapid deforestation for urbanization and agriculture, particularly palm oil plantations both in Africa and Asia, are leading the habitat destruction. The building and construction of roads for these various uses not only contributes to habitat loss, but has the added effect of facilitating pangolin hunting and poaching, making previously inaccessible areas open. Another indirect threat that has been created through road construction is becoming roadkill, which is a significant threat seen in Singapore. Here are some statistics to show how habitat loss and degradation is impacting pangolin species. This is particularly the case in West Africa, where there's some of the highest human density populations throughout the African continent that has contributed to a severe loss of forest habitats due to rapid urbanization. For example, in 2018, the Democratic Republic of the Congo had the second highest loss of primary tropical forests in the world, which is home to 3 out of the 4 African pangolin species. Other West African countries like Ghana have lost up to 98% of their natural forest coverage. Throughout Malaysia, Thailand, and Indonesia, habitat loss is driven by commercial operations such as mining, logging, and the construction of roads. However, the major driver of primary forest loss is for agricultural use, particularly for palm oil and rubber plantations. The picture on the right shows the destruction of mangrove forests in Indonesia for palm oil production. Furthermore, pangolins are often seen as pests to palm oil plantations as they dig around the base of the trees in search for prey, damaging the plants in the process. This is particularly true of the Indian pangolin in Sri Lanka, where they're killed for being nuisances. So that's kind of an indirect effect to their habitat loss. Now let's look at pangolin population viability. In the wild, pangolin population densities and abundance are hard to study due to the species' shy, elusive nature and solitary nocturnal behaviors. There is little to no reliable quantitative data, but all the species are presumed to be declining, with accounts often being provided by villagers and hunters of their increasing rarity at local levels. Additionally, pangolins have a low natural density, making them even harder to quantify. Two exceptions to this lack of data is the Timmenix pangolin population in South Africa that is estimated to be between 16,000 and 24,000 individuals in 2016. Another exception is the Sunda pangolin population in Singapore, which was estimated to be 1,046 individuals in 2019. In the AZA community, penguins are a part of the pangolin, aardvarks, and Arthura taxon advisory group, also known as PAX tag. Despite not being taxonomically related, rather these species were grouped together as they share similar biology and natural history. Pangolins are not one of the formally managed species for the PAX tag, meaning there is not an SSP due to the small captive population size. As of July 2022, the only pangolin species held in AZA care is the white-bellied pangolin. The species is currently held at 3 AZA institutions with a population size of 17 individuals. While not formally managed, white-bellied pangolins have been listed as tag monitored due to the increase in population growth since 2016. Therefore, a target population size has not been accounted for. This low captive population levels are not surprising, as pangolin selective diet makes them very hard to maintain in captivity. The picture on the left is of a white-bellied pangolin eating from a hanging food bowl at the Brookville Zoo in Chicago, which is the leading AZA institute in pangolin care. Now we're going to look at some conservation efforts pertaining to the pangolin. The first one is the Pangolin Project. It's based out of Kenya. It's a nonprofit organization that participates in in-situ conservation efforts by conducting practical conservation research. This is super important as much of the pangolin's ecology, behavior, and life history is still relatively unknown. Currently, the organization is working on the Mara Pangolin Initiative with the Kenya Wildlife Service to assess the current population status of the Timmenix pangolin on the Masai Mara Reserve through the use of burrowscopes, camera traps, and GPS tracking in the hopes that this information will inform future conservation strategies. Additionally, the Pangolin Project currently supports and provides training for rangers and community scouts to gather the necessary skills and knowledge to help conserve pangolins on the ground. The training includes how to effectively use technology to protect pangolin species. Lastly, the project is engaging the community by helping to influence knowledge and attitudes about the species. An example of an ex situ conservation recovery effort for the pangolin is the Pangolin Conservation Breeding Center. In 2008, the Nandakanan Zoological Park in India, with financial assistance from the Central Zoo Authority in New Delhi, established the off-exhibit Pangolin Conservation Breeding Center. The goal of the center was to establish proper housing, husbandry, diet, and captive breeding procedures for the Indian pangolin, as pangolins are notoriously difficult to keep in human care due to stress and malnutrition. They have been successful in their captive breeding efforts of these endangered species, effectively creating an assured population. The picture on the right shows the center staff providing supplemental feeding to a baby Indian pangolin. One major factor to the center's success is the discovery that red weaver ants, along with their larvae, are readily accepted by Indian pangolins in captivity. The center directly harvests these ants daily from the surrounding forest. When this ant species is in low supply, the center discovered that boiled chicken eggs mixed with milk powder is a good alternative food source. In addition to ex situ captive breeding efforts, the center also rehabilitates rescued pangolins from poachers and traffickers. The rescued pangolins are often carry large tick loads, so after rehabilitation, the pangolin is assessed for suitability to be re-released into the wild. Lastly, the zoo itself extensively educates locals about the ecological importance of pangolins as well as their conservation needs. The last conservation effort that I want to highlight for the pangolin is the Pangolin Conservation and Research Foundation. It was established to help protect pangolin species in southern Africa. The PCRF is currently conducting research projects to develop biological baseline data, including ecology and genetics, that are desperately needed for these endangered species. Additionally, the PCRF helps to rehabilitate and then release trafficked pangolins. Upon release, the PCRF places trackers on these individuals to monitor their well-being and see how successful they are at reintegrating into the wild. Next, the PCRF is working with technology companies to improve the technology behind the pangolin transmitters, as current ones are not effective due to their inability to use solar power due to the pangolin's nocturnal lifestyle and the drain on battery life to transmit data from underground burrows. Additionally, current transmitters cannot hold up effectively against the wear and tear of the pangolin's environment, especially of the giant ground pangolin and its fossorial lifestyle. Furthermore, to promote community engagement and empowerment, the foundation offers student internships to gain firsthand experience in conservation, research, and education. You can see one of the students in the picture on the left actually weighing a trapped pangolin and then releasing it after putting a tracker on it. Additionally, the PCRF has a Pangolin Ranger program that provides an alternate form of income to poaching. Rangers are training in pangolin behavior and regularly monitor resident and released pangolins. As you can see from this presentation, pangolins really need our help, so let's ride and roll to their rescue today.